What's the first thing I remember? It must be Papa, calling out my name. Ireena! He'd shout, whenever I wandered too far away from his side. When I was little, I thought he was just being silly. Now I know what he felt. He was afraid. It's not that my childhood was hard. The villagers tipped their caps to Papa and called him Burgomaster. I lived in a fine house with a father and brother who loved me. Yet, something was missing. Something I can't describe or explain. As grateful as I am for my family and my home, sometimes, at night, I can't help but feel that none of it is mine. I grew up here in the village, in shabby old Barovia. And ever since I can remember, its people have never seemed quite right to me. Papa burned bright with life. My brother Ismak too. But the others in the village, most of them just flickered. As if they were barely there. Castle Ravenloft looks down on the village, watching us all. As a girl, I always wondered who lived up in that splendid building on the hill. But when I asked the grown-ups about the castle, they told me to mind my business, or else I'll bring the curse of the demon Strahd down upon us. I had so many questions, but I learned not to ask. Not to ask why the doors were barred at night. Not to ask why I couldn't go into the forest. Not to ask what had happened to my friends who vanished without a trace. Always stay close to your home, little one, they told me. And fear the devil Strahd above all. Sometimes, at night, I dream of a world of light. A world where the sun blazed like a bonfire instead of hiding behind the mists. In my dream, I'd walk through the warm sunlight to a little pond. Suddenly, I'd realize that someone was missing. Someone who was supposed to be there. And then, I would wake up to the cold and the dark. One day when I was grown, I went to the marketplace to buy some lamb for dinner. There I was, chatting away with the butcher, when I suddenly realized that everyone else had gone silent. They were all staring at a tall man in expensive clothes who had just arrived in the square. And this man, he was staring at me. That was the first time I saw Count Strahd von Zarovich. The night after I went to the marketplace, the Count himself appeared at our door. He called me Tatiana, said he'd come to see me. Papa and Ismak were terrified. I was not. This was the demon that kept the entire valley paralyzed with fear. He looked just like a man to me. But then, Strahd looked at me. I saw the blazing hunger in his eyes. And then, I remember no more. Later, they told me that Strahd bit me, like an animal. I have no memory of this, though the holes in my flesh showed it was true. I remember only darkness, and dreams where I ran and then fell. When I awoke, they told me I had been in a fit that lasted for 3 days. Papa said he thought I would die. Then he bit me a second time. Our neighbors tell me that Strahd came here, but I don't remember it. And neither does Papa or Ismak. I just remember waking up on the floor with blood on my neck and the front door open. What can be done to defend against this kind of dark magic? I could see that Papa was afraid. And not just of Strad. People in the village started to whisper that they did not want me here. But I would not leave Papa. I would not leave our home. I vowed that Strad would not have me, and Papa agreed. To keep the demon at bay, we barricaded ourselves inside our home. So Strad sent his servants for us instead. Night after night, the wolves came and beat against our door. Their howls kept us awake until we thought we would go mad from lack of sleep. Papa died on the 7th night. His heart couldn't take the strain, poor thing. Ismak and I thought that Strad would surely attack in force, but no wolves came that night. And indeed, no wolves have come since. Phew. Maybe Strad is giving us time to bury our dead, treating us like honored opponents on the battlefield. Or maybe he knows he has already won. Now, we wait. We wait for Strad to come a third time. We wait for the darkness to take me at last. Ismak has given in to despair since Papa's death. He says he does not believe Strad can ever be stopped. I try to be more optimistic, but it becomes harder with each day. One thing I know for certain. If I am to resist Strad, I cannot do it alone. Last night I dreamed of the light again. This time a man stood in the sun by the pond. A man I had never seen before. He held up his hand, and in it was a sword that blazed with light. He told me that night was ending, and help would come with the dawn. When I woke up, it was still dark, and I could hear the wind howling outside. But this time, I could feel a warmth within me. A light that refused to go out.